please send any specific complaints to @Schubes17 on Twitter.
Don't do that. Nope. DMs are closed. Slide out. What's good? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a 29-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid, but I'm now doing so as an adult as a quest to see if this is a book series that we've all been sleeping on. I'm not on this quest alone, though. I am joined again by one of my best buds in the whole wide world, someone that I love to nerd out with about many things, and now we got to nerd out about Percy Jackson last week, which was very good, and I also want to make sure that I don't forget to tell the story of how you saved me looking like a huge goofball in episode 1. It's Stephen Parra. Stephen, how's it going?
I'm doing awesome. Oh yeah, I did save your butt. We could talk about that in a second.
Right. So if I'm doing my math properly, this should be episode 17 of the podcast, which now makes me feel like I've built up enough clout for people who don't know who I am, that they either respect me or realize how much of a goofball I am, because I recorded the first episode of the show, the first 2 episodes, long before we actually posted them. I think we recorded them in May, and then the first episode went live in September of 2021. And I had these done, and I was talking about just how it went with Steven, and after talking about it, you started reading the books. And at one point I joked about, there was this really funny point where Jackson Bird and I went on this big anti-Uncle Rick, he doesn't know New York rant, where he said that being in the Upper East Side was really close, when he was talking about Sally's apartment, being on the Upper East Side was really close to the MoMA, because I, for whatever reason, when I read Metropolitan Museum of Art, I saw an M, an M, and an A, and I said, oh yeah, the MoMA, forgetting that that's the Met and not the MoMA, a different museum with completely different styles of art that are in completely different parts of the city. So Stephen, a week or so later, said, hey, I actually don't know why you would go on such a rant. The Met is actually kind of close to Sally's apartment. And then we spoke on the phone, and then I realized, oh no. So I then had to text Jackson and said, hey, normally I would have just kept this in the podcast because it would have been funny, but because it's episode 1, I feel like we should re-record this bit. So we did re-record that. So peek behind the curtain. And if you support the show on Patreon, 1, you knew I made the scoop from day 1 because I posted about it. But 2, you can listen to me and Jackson not realize that we were talking about the MoMA when we should have been talking about the Met for like 15 minutes.
I mean, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know you said thank you, but you're welcome. But the richest part about that to me is, I am a Texan from San Antonio. The whole joke that you're making about it, and then a Texan from San Antonio had to correct you on your New York geography.
Had to correct me, longtime Northeast and multiple year New York City resident, and Jackson Bird, who's also lived in New York City for a while. It both just went completely over our heads, and we didn't recognize that they were. And of course, they were at the Met. They were looking at old ancient Greek stuff.
I know.
That makes more sense than being at the Museum of Modern Art.
Yeah.
Come on, me.
I literally texted you that. I'm like, why would they go to a modern art museum to look at ancient Greek things? Like, I remember saying that.
And I believe I replied, touche. So now that we've all lost any remaining credibility that we had for Mike Schubert when he talks about New York stuff, we can now continue our discussion of Chapter 19 and hopefully get through all of Chapter 20. But where we last left our heroes, they were talking with Hades about what is actually going on, and everyone's throwing theories around, and Hades has now threatened to stop death and fill the world with the undead, which is scary. So right after doing that, the skeleton army moves forward and readies their weapons. But rather than be scared, Percy is angry because nothing gets him more upset than being falsely accused. And I like this character trait of Percy.
Oh, yeah. I might even mention this a little bit last week, but hard same, buddy.
Yes.
I think sometimes people get embarrassed or they shut down, but I definitely just get mad.
Yep. I am in the exact same boat For sure. Percy says that Hades is as bad as Zeus and pretty much says to Hades, really? You think I stole from you and that's why you sent the Furies on me? And Hades basically goes, yes, that is exactly it. But when Percy asks about the other monsters, Hades says, I had nothing to do with the other monsters because I didn't want a quick death for you, which is the most chilling way to tell someone, oh, I didn't try to kill you, which should be a relief. But the reason is I wanted to kill you worse, in a more painful way.
Or just make him listen to opera music, I guess.
Also that, or, murder him while opera music is playing.
Oh,
Porque no los
poetic.
Hades says he wanted to torture Percy in the fields of punishment and asks, why do you think I let you enter my kingdom so easily? And this, like you mentioned last episode, is where Percy goes, easily?
Whoops, I jumped the gun there, I guess.
It's okay. It was such a fun thing, and it felt apt and on brand with what we were discussing. It was totally fine. But then you get this really fun back and forth where Percy goes, easily, and Hades goes, return my property. And Percy goes, but I don't have your helm. I came for the Master Bolt. And then Hades goes, which you already possess. You came here with it, little fool, thinking you could threaten me. And Percy goes, but I didn't. And Hades goes, open your pack then. And oh no, because before he even does it, I went, no, the backpack was heavy. And then I went, no, the backpack. And at this point, I wasn't sure, should I be happy or upset? Because incredibly early on, and there is audio evidence, I said, I bet it's Ares. And I bet it's Ares because he wants to start a war. And then we met Ares, and Ares kind of laughed at that notion. And I thought, one, we've met Ares, and two, he kind of threw out this theory as the easiest thing to blame him for. So then I realized, oh, my prediction may not have been correct. Maybe it's not Ares. We've already met Ares. It's got to be somebody else. But no, Ares is behind this. So part of me wants to do a lap around the studio because I predicted this in episode 4, very early on. I thought maybe it's Ares. That's my guess.
Bobby Wagner. That would be chapter 9, so episode 7.
Thank you. Wow, coming with the facts.
I might have Spotify open to the newest Olympian page so I could reference these things.
There it is. Yeah. So since episode 7, you can listen to it. I said, I bet it's Ares. And yeah, I mean, Percy later goes on to recognize what's going on. But yeah, I was terrified because of the backpack. So Percy opens it and yeah, the bolt is in there, which... oofa doofa, pit in the stomach for sure. Hades is convinced that Percy did all of this to threaten/bargain for Sally. And this just makes me think of in Doctor Strange, where Doctor Strange rolls in and goes, Dormammu, I've come to bargain. I just think by using bargain, you could have Percy coming in with a backpack and going, Hades, I've come to bargain. Hades thinks he's doing this to bargain for Sally. Hades tosses a ball of gold fire, and it lands at Percy's feet. And from it rises Sally, frozen in gold, just in the same pose as she, quote-unquote, died whenever Hades teleported her out of there. Hades says that he took her knowing that Percy would come to bargain. He says that she isn't dead, but that could change if he doesn't return the helm. Again, very intimidating, very scary. Hades has a way with words. Percy starts to think about the pearls, and then Hades says, the pearls. So can Hades read minds? Because that's very horrifying, if so.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's just a godly thing, like they just have powers. Sometimes it kind of functions under Superman rules, where it's like, also I can do this.
Right.
Also I can do that.
I despise Superman. I think he's the worst hero. I may have said this on one of my other podcasts, but this at age 10 is when I decided no Superman for me. I was watching Superman the cartoon because it was on after Spider-Man the animated series, which is perfect.
The best.
So fantastic. But in the Superman one, he was flying, and then he used supersonic hearing to overhear a bad guy meeting. He then broke through the brick wall and then used heat vision and freeze breath to defeat them. So in a 30-second clip, also they shot bullets at him and they bounced off of him. So in a 30-second clip, this dude used 6 powers, and immediately I was just out. I was ride or die for Spider-Man. Give me the guy with very specific powers who taunts his enemies and makes jokes all the time. This is the superhero for me. Superman, last place hero. He's the worst.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting because that comes into this interesting like Marvel DC sort of debate, I guess, right? Because when you look at like DC characters, oftentimes they are these larger than life heroes that can do amazing things, but they have a fatal flaw. Similar to like how Greek heroes function most of the time, actually.
For sure.
Then you have the flip side where it's like Marvel, which oftentimes these are more or less ordinary people that have an extraordinary ability. And you're coming at it from the different angle there. And obviously, this is an oversimplification. I'm just painting in broad strokes. Please send any specific complaints to @Schubes17 on Twitter.
No, don't do that. Nope. The DMs are closed. Slide out.
But, I think that's also why I love Spider-Man so much, is because he's such a human character that also has this thing. And it's the flip side where it's like, with things like Superman, it's like oftentimes his weakness is kryptonite or whatever else. Yes, I acknowledge there are good runs of Superman. I haven't read them. I'm sure they exist. But in my head, a lot of the Greek gods, like even in the TNO, or sorry, not the TNO, the Percy Jackson universe, I really kind of slot them into a similar like Superman thing, where it's like when they can do anything, they're kind of boring.
But I feel like the flaws of the gods that we've met so far are compelling, and it works out, and we'll see later with Ares how that all shakes out.
Absolutely.
I think going back to the potential mind reading thing, this was something that Chiron was able to do, and even Grover a little bit, is just, even though I don't think either of them inherently have mind reading powers, they are able to sense Percy, what he is thinking or feeling. And maybe it's because it's just a godlike thing where you are very good at perceiving. Maybe Hades could tell by the way Percy was shuffling around that he was feeling around for the pearls. He knew Poseidon would give them to him, something like that. But also Percy could be like me, which I have a very expressive face, and I am not very good at controlling what my face looks like when I'm unhappy. Specifically, if I am watching an improv show, and by nature of doing a lot of improv, I have seen a lot of bad improv, and I cannot control my face to look like I'm having a good time when it's just terrible improv, just people breaking all the rules and principles. You can just read me like a book. And also this happened recently. Funnily enough, I was at a wedding with Sal Testa, someone who I did a lot of improv with, and he would always make fun of me for this, of knowing when I was not having a good time in the audience of a show. We were at a wedding and we were having a conversation with someone who was just, it was miserable because me, Sal, and one other friend who hadn't seen each other in a long time were off in our own little quarter, catching up, really trying to make the most of our time together because we don't get to see each other very often.
Yeah.
This person that we did not know came in and bogarted the whole conversation, made it all about them, and said some uncomfortable things. And I tried to be a good sport about it. But after a couple minutes, man, my face just was reading in size 150 font. Leave! I don't want to talk to you. And I can't do it. So maybe Percy can just be read like a book. Which makes sense because, Percy Jackson's a book. Anyway, so after Hades says, the pearls, he commands Percy to bring them to him. And against his will, Percy's hand moves and it brings out the pearls. And Hades says, only 3. What a shame. You do realize each only protects a single person. Try to take your mother then, little godling. And which of your friends will you leave behind to spend eternity with me? Go on, choose. Or give me the backpack and accept my terms. Hades is good at this. He's very good at this.
Yes. It makes me think back to like other literature where you think about like bargaining with the devil. I know that's not exactly a one-to-one with Hades, but it seems like a similar sort of concept. He's so good.
He's quite adept.
I do gotta say though, thank you, Hades, for explaining how the pearls work.
Right.
It's like, I don't think Percy would have figured that out on his own.
Yeah, I think it was pretty good for Percy. There's been a couple instances of the villains revealing key information, such as the echidna telling Percy, jump into the water and you'll probably be okay. That was very helpful. And now this is pretty helpful. Oh, okay, cool, great. I can't just throw it on the ground. I need to use one per person. Thanks, Hades.
Yeah.
So Grover offers for Percy to leave him behind. Grover is so pure. We love Grover.
The best.
This is a pro-Grover podcast. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say I don't like Grover. If someone did, I would question them so hard. There is nothing to not love about him.
Yeah, we should all strive to be more like Grover in our lives.
I think he's the least complex character I've ever read, but not because he's not interesting, just because he is so obviously perfect and great and wholesome and lovely.
And even then, he has a great little arc in this book on his own anyways. It's awesome.
Yeah, in this book, and I'm excited to see in the series. I hope he finds Pan. I really do. So Grover says that his soul, because he's a satyr, is different and he cannot be tortured forever. Eventually, he'll be reincarnated, quote, as a flower or something, which, cool. I didn't know that's how satyrs work, but neat. And I think, of course, very selfless.
Yeah, but I'd rather have Grover.
I would rather have Grover. Flowers are cool, but Grovers are better. So then Annabeth jumps in saying that she should be left behind because Grover needs to get his license and Annabeth will go down fighting. And now we're having a nice off, which is great. They are continuing to argue, but it's the best kind of argument possible.
I know. I felt Annabeth's explanation was a little weaker than Grover's in my opinion.
Yes. I think she came in with a good sentiment of, Grover, you also have some high stakes. You have something that you are seeking to achieve. But then her following line of, I'm going to go down fighting. You are fighting against Hades and an army of skeletons. I do not think it's going to go very well, Annabeth.
Yeah.
I guess Grover's argument was more of, I have a better reason of why the torture element won't be so bad. And Annabeth had a better reason of, you also have something to live for. So maybe it's that. But I agree. Annabeth's argument didn't really strike as hard here.
Yeah. That also makes it more tragic to think that Annabeth doesn't have something else to live for it. I hope she does.
I hope
I'd like to think so.
I mean, this quest is still very important to her, but I think it would be cool. I don't know what the future books are about, but this feels kind of like a Percy-centric quest. I think it would be kind of fun if one of the books is more Annabeth and Percy's kind of along for the ride. I know Percy's the main character, but I think it would be cool if one of the things is, I don't know, Annabeth's got to do something for Athena. That could be very cool.
That'd be neat. I mean, just to remind, it is called Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
That's true.
There's more characters. It's not just this kid.
Yeah. But it's not called the Olympians feat Percy Jackson.
Feat Percy Jackson.
As they are having this nice argument, narrator Percy realizes that neither of these two friends could be the friend to betray him. Obviously, because the friend to betray you is Luke. But anyway, the reason that Percy recognizes this is because all along this journey, they have saved him time and time again. And now they were offering to sacrifice themselves for his mom. Not even for him, for his mom. So Percy knows that these are just the best friends possible. Correct. He turns to Sally. He wants to sacrifice himself for her. And at this point, I knew what he was going to do, and it was crushing. But one, I think it's the right thing to do. And two, it's what I predicted. So Percy wants to sacrifice himself for her, but he knows that she wouldn't allow it, and she would be so disappointed in him if he did it. Classic superhero thing of, do you save Mary Jane or do you save the group of kids in the Roosevelt Island ferry from the Green Goblin? Spider-Man's able to do both.
But he's Spider-Man.
Can't really do that here, yes. But also, if you've ever played the video game Infamous, which is a game that's all about choosing good or evil, spoiler alert, in case anyone doesn't want to get spoiled about this game that came out in 2012, I think?
It slaps, though. Check it out if you haven't.
It's a good game. There is a similar dilemma of save your girlfriend or save a group of innocent people, you know, trolley problem. And if you do the good path, you save the people and, you know, your girlfriend goes down as a martyr. She's remembered well, blah, blah, blah. If you do the evil path, you save your girlfriend and she resents you for it immediately and refuses to be with you any longer because she is just absolutely furious that you would choose one life over 5 innocent lives just because you have the connection, blah, blah, blah. So it felt reminiscent of that with Sally here. Percy just knows that she is going to be furious with him if he saves her and then also starts a war just to save her.
Yeah.
Not necessarily start, but he doesn't prevent a war. And it's a tough call. I think he made the right call. And I am hoping that in a future book he can do it. But I hope it's not like these series of unfortunate events where they get so close to getting what they want and then in the end of every book something goes terribly wrong. It would be crushing if in books 2, 3, and 4 Percy gets so close to saving Sally but then again doesn't get to. Maybe that'll happen, but that would be tough.
Yeah, you know, it's been a while since I've read the other books. I can't really remember, man.
Oh, boo. I do understand that as the guest you have to do that, but that is the fun way to do it if you
just pretending I don't know.
Yeah, doctor in training, person who is incredible at memorizing, pretending not to remember. So, Percy continues, quote, I thought about the prophecy made at Half-Blood Hill, what seemed like 1,000,000 years ago. you will fail to save what matters most in the end, which is exactly what I thought this was going to be. Look at me. I solved a middle grade book. And Percy says to Sally, I'm so sorry. I'll be back. I'll find a way. And Percy then tells Hades, I'll find your helm. And he reminds Hades, oh, also give Charon that pay raise. And while he's doing this, Hades knows that Percy's trying to leave. So he keeps trying to interject. So when he mentions the pay raise, Hades goes, do not defy me. And then Percy tells Hades to play with Cerberus once in a while, mentioning that he likes red balls. And Hades goes, Percy Jackson, you will not. And then Percy says, now, guys. And then they smash the pearls. Very funny that basically Hades was reduced to, I don't know, it's similar to a you can't fire me, I quit type of thing. I don't know. It's just the villain who is trying to say, you can't do this. Don't you know who I am? And Percy just ignores him completely. Fantastic.
I know. You know, I think it's reminiscent of like what Percy has to deal with in his school days. Because, you know, he always seems to be on the wrong end of the stick with his teachers and stuff. And I always felt like that moment. It's kind of like this, like, Percy Jackson, don't you dare.
I also want to give props to Uncle Rick for using the proper Northeast thing that a 12-year-old from the Northeast would say, which is now guys, which is the plural of humans. You plural is you guys. If he went full Texan, he would have said now y'all, and that would have been absolutely wild.
Which I would have loved, and I wouldn't even have thought twice about it, which is so funny to me. When I read these books as a youngish, I was almost an adult. What am I saying? A younger person.
So the team smashes the pearls, and it takes a second to work, which is one of those things where a second feels like an eternity because the skeleton army begins to attack. They've got their swords out, bullets start flying, the Furies lunge at them with flame whips, but the pearls by now have busted open and a sea wind has come in, and the team is surrounded in milky white spheres. And then narrator Percy says, quote, Hades yelled with such rage, the entire fortress shook, and I knew it was not going to be a peaceful night in Los Angeles. And the fact that this is the explanation for LA earthquakes is very funny. And I want to know, chicken and the egg, is this why LA was picked? Or was Uncle Rick already set on Los Angeles as the entrance to the underworld and then thought, oh, this will be fun? Whatever the answer is, I think that's such a fun explanation.
You should ask him when Rick comes on the pod. Rick, come on the pod.
Rick, come on the pod. I will add this to my list of very important questions to ask Rick Riordan.
Yeah.
So the spheres float through the air, and they are approaching these stalactites in the ceiling, and Percy is worried, is it going to pop this thing? But they just kind of phase through them. They phase through the ocean floor, and then he remembers, oh, that's what that vague phrase of what belongs to the sea will always return to the sea meant. And then they explode onto the surface of the water in the middle of the Santa Monica Bay, knocking a surfer off of his surfboard, and he just screams, dude, at them,
Bruh.
Which is great. Very fun. Love that he is not questioning how they got there, but is just upset that they ruined his chance of catching a gnarly wave.
And I love when he comes off, because it seems like anytime sort of a hippie-ish person encounters something from the Greek side of things, they're always like writing it off as a bad trip or bad shrooms and stuff like that. Like,
yes.
He always tosses that in. Just so funny to me.
It's very fun. What happens next is they get circled by an 11-foot great white shark. Percy says, beat it, and it does. And then the narrator says, the surfer screamed something about bad mushrooms and paddled away from us as fast as he could. And to use the phrase bad mushrooms is a perfect appeal to old and young readers move by Rick here, because as a kid, you go, oh, that's kind of funny. He ate a food that maybe was spoiled. And once you're older, you go, oh, mushrooms. Percy can sense that it is the morning, so now it's June 21st. It's the summer solstice. Time is short. So Hades did cause an earthquake, and LA is on fire all over, which that does sound pretty terrifying. But Percy's not worried about Hades and the army of the dead that may be after him. He's determined to get the bolt back to Zeus and have a serious conversation with the god who tricked me, who I'm thinking is Ares at this point. That's the end of chapter 19, and we will soon get into chapter 20, but why don't we take a little break here for the lightning brief? Oh, natural transition. Hello and welcome to this episode's lightning brief. First off, we've got merch. We've got merch, baby. Let's go. Merch. So we've got 3 new merchandise items that I'm very excited to share with you all. The first of which is a pen. And it is a pen that pays homage to your favorite pen, my favorite pen, everyone's favorite pen, Riptide. It is a pen with a cap, and on the cap, it says, "My other pen is Riptide." No, I am not selling Riptide to you, but now you can have a pen that lets the world know that your other pen is Riptide. True to form, it writes in black ink as Anaklusmos was described to be in book 1, so that is available. The second item we have is a crewneck What's Good t-shirt paying homage to the intro of the newest Olympian. It is a tri-blend shirt, so it is incredibly soft, and the color is something that I think could be interpreted as one or many nods to the series. The official color listing from the shirt provider that we used is sand dune, but it's this nice orangey, tannish color where you could interpret it as paying homage to the orange of the Camp Half-Blood shirts, or the tan of sand because of Beach Poseidon vibes, or the celestial bronze of Anaklusmos and the other Greek weapons. So there's no wrong answer. It can be whatever color you want. And take it from me, a colorblind person, color means nothing. Color's a word, just like age is just a number. Color can be whatever you want it to be, right? So it's whatever color you want it. It's a good shirt, and it's soft, and it looks nice. And the final merch item we have is the newest Olympian logo sticker. It's a cool little die-cut sticker, kind of looks like a ticket stub, and the fun thing about this sticker is that you can now turn any item that exists into a TNO item. If you slap this on your phone, boom, you have the newest Olympian phone. You put this on your laptop, boom, you have the newest Olympian laptop. Put this on your blender, you've got a TNO blender. The possibilities are endless, so you can get all 3 of these merch items if you go to thenewestolympian.com/merch, and you can get it today. It's a pre-order now, but get that pre-order in and you will get it as soon as you possibly can. I'd also like to take some time to thank all of the folks who are supporting the show via Patreon. I want to give a shout out to our newest patrons. First, our newest Ultra God patrons, Marco Redhouse and Falcon Joey James Christopher William Boucher. I will be saying that every episode, and that's a lot of words, but that's okay. Thanks for supporting the show at the highest tier. Also want to shout out our newest Mega Gods, Mahoney Cooper, Colby, and Dr. Money, who recently upgraded into the Mega God tier. Shout out to our newest Super God tier patrons, Ambi Quaflua, Melissa Butts, and V Tran. Shout out to our newest God tier patrons, Claire O'Connor, Madeline Marks, Elizabeth Schmitz, Haley Huff, Megan, Serena McNeary, Ulrike Bakken, Unique Nikel, and someone that made their name, don't get me started about Charon, which is fantastic. And shout out to our newest Demigod tier patrons, Kate Bowles, Hannah Shue, and Theseus Lim, who's been a Demigod patron for a while, but I somehow missed the notification that they joined that tier. If this has happened to you, please shoot me an email or shoot me a message on Patreon, and I will correct that issue. So thanks to all of you for supporting the show, and thank you to Multitude for supporting the show by having us as a part of the collective. If you're all caught up on the newest Olympian and you're looking for a new podcast, you could listen to some other Multitude shows, one of which is Spirits. And if you like the Greek mythology stuff in the Percy Jackson books, you'll love Spirits. They've done a lot of episodes on figures in Greek mythology. They are currently doing once a month different Greek gods and goddesses. It's very fun. You've got Julia Schaffini and Amanda McLaughlin, and every now and then Eric Schneider talking about folklore from olden times or urban legends. It's a great mix. It's all told in a queer and feminine forward lens. There's hundreds of episodes out there, so you will have a bountiful harvest of episodes for you to choose from. Scroll through, see what they've got, and listen now wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Spirits or going to spiritspodcast.com. And finally, before we wrap up here, you'll hear words from sponsors that make it feasible for me to podcast as a full-time job. Some of these ads will be read by me, others of them won't, but once those ads are complete, we will get back to this episode of The Newest Olympian. And we're back, and we are discussing chapter 20, which is called I Battle My Jerk Relative. A+, love it. 100 out of 100. Mm-hmm. So they get picked up by the Coast Guard, and thankfully, with all of the other stuff going on in LA, the Coast Guard asks exactly 0 questions. So they drop the team off at the pier, and they go off to save more people. One cool note here is that Percy wills himself to get wet, neutralizing his always be dry powers so that he's not suspicious, which I think is a great thought by Percy, and also pretty cool that he can turn it on and off if the situation sees fit.
Absolutely.
Which does now also answer the question, can Percy Jackson shower? Yes. He can.
What stuck out to me too is, he gives Grover his shoes.
Yes. Gosh.
And that's important to me, I guess, at least going forward, because Percy now is in a state of barefoot.
He is. He's in a state of barefoot, but also I appreciate that Percy has an awareness of the little things. He's always trying to think about, he knows with the Greek god, demigod, gotta stay secret stuff. He has a good sense of cover and what needs to be hidden. And I really respect it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, gave his shoes to Grover so that his hooves would be covered. They reach dry land, and the line that narrator Percy says here is really nice. It says, "My backpack was heavy with Zeus's master bolt. My heart was even heavier from seeing my mother."
Oh, Percy.
Really hits you with these from time to time. He's funny, he's sassy, he's quirky, but you also get some really heartfelt quotes from narrator Percy.
He's just so genuine.
Yes.
And I think that's why people gravitate towards him. And it's definitely why I was able to marathon through the book so quickly. It's just because Percy as a character is just so compelling that it's hard to stop. Exactly for what you're saying, because of those human moments, in addition to him just being really funny.
Yes, very funny. And on top of that compelling nature, these books are written very suspensefully, very edge of your seaty. And it is making my job of not reading ahead super hard.
Yeah, I feel bad for you, man.
It's okay. Feel bad for me. My job is I get to talk about these, which is a pretty sweet gig. Takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of hours put into it. But at the end of the day, pretty cool job.
Mm-hmm.
So Annabeth is shocked. Percy says that this was all a trick and it was a strategy worthy of Athena. And Annabeth knows what happened. Grover does not. And Grover wants them to let him in, tell him what's going on. But Annabeth interrupts to apologize to Percy about him not being able to save Sally. Percy just pretends that he didn't hear her so that he can avoid talking about it, because he knows he would just burst into tears if he started talking about it. And that is relatable.
Oh, yeah. And I remember because it's like, I think he even says, like, otherwise I start crying like a little kid.
He specifically does say like a little kid, which is such a 12-year-old thing to say.
I know. I wrote, like, Percy, you are 12. You poor thing.
No, I'm a preteen. I'm old.
I know. It's interesting to me looking back, because it's like, we do reflect on, like, Percy is 12, and we're putting so much pressure on Percy to do all the things he's had to accomplish so far. But I also feel like in some ways, the fact that he's 12 was an advantage for him, because he didn't have to think about all the consequences of what's going on. He could just be like, this is my task. I can do this.
Right.
Whereas, you know, if you grab 29-year-old Steven, actually, I might be 30 by the time this podcast drops.
You will be. Yeah, I think you will be. Wow, happy birthday at some point in the future.
Oh, that's wild to think about. Anyways, I don't know if I could just walk up to Hades and be like, yo, I got 2 requests, man.
Yeah, I feel like if I walked up and the first line Hades said, I would just quick 180 and go, well, we tried.
Yeah. It was worth a shot. Let's go have some food with Grover.
Yeah, I feel like if I had to approach Hades, it would just be what I do anytime I ask anyone for anything. Smallest request, very normal thing, where I would just be like, hey, sorry to bother you. Just want to ask you something real quick. This is a very normal thing to ask for, but I'm still going to be please. Also, everything has exclamation points. And then also, no worries if not.
I know.
I would have enormous no worries if not energy if I had to talk to Hades.
No worries. Oh, that's good.
So Percy reveals that the prophecy was right. You will go west and face the god who has turned. But that's not Hades. And Grover asks, who could it be? And Percy goes, gee, I wonder. And standing in front of them is Ares. Look at me go. I predicted this right. Kind of. We will learn by the end of this chapter, there's something else going on, and there's something happening next chapter, and boy, oh boy, was it hard to stop reading this one. Percy immediately confronts Ares, accusing him of stealing the bolt and the helm. Ares reminds Percy that gods cannot steal each other's items, so Percy says, who did you use, Clarice? And Ares says, doesn't matter, which means it's 1,000% Luke. I have no doubt in my mind. I would bet large sums of money that Luke is behind this at this point, just because the only thing that makes sense here is to make the story more compelling, there to be one more twist, and for Ares just to not mention anything at all. It has to be. Also, friend betray you. We've established it's not Grover or Annabeth. It's got to be Luke here. I feel supremely confident about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's my first time reading this
boo,
book.
Boo, no, that's my job. So Ares says Percy is messing up his plan. And Ares' plan was for Percy to die in the underworld. And if that happened, quote, old seaweed would be mad at Hades for killing Percy. And then, quote, corpse breath would draw the ire of Zeus because he has the bolt. And Hades will still be looking for the helm, which Ares then pulls out. It starts as a ski mask, balaclava thing that a robber would wear, which feels on brand for Ares' whole vibe. But he places it between his bike's handlebars and it becomes a bronze war helmet, which is pretty cool. And at this point I realized, oh, right, helmet. Right.
Yeah.
So Ares continues that Hades would be mad at both Poseidon and Zeus, not really knowing or caring which of them took it. But Annabeth brings up that these are all his family. And would you really want to do this? And Ares shrugs this off completely and says that those are the best kinds of war because they are always the bloodiest. And this is not surprising for Ares to say. It's rough, but I mean, from what we know about Ares, feels incredibly on brand.
He is the war god.
Exactly. And that's what led me to guess him, and here we are. Percy accuses Ares of giving him the bowl ever since Denver by giving him the backpack, and Ares says yes and no. He clarifies that the backpack is the bolt's sheath, if you will. It's just been transformed a bit. It's similar to Riptide returning to Percy's pocket. And Ares apparently tinkered with the magic so that the bolt would only return to the sheath once Percy got to the underworld. And initially I was thinking, wait, how could he? He's a god.
Yes. Superman. We talked about this, you know.
Yeah. So this is a win-win for Ares because if Percy makes it, Hades gets the bolt. But if Percy dies along the way, Ares still has the bolt and it hasn't teleported away to the backpack. Now, when I learned that this was backpack teleport magic, I thought, okay, yeah, like they're gods. They can do this sort of thing. I'm not going to question it. I was trying to hypothesize how the bolt got in there. And I was wondering if when the wind was sucking them into the pit, if it opened the backpack because I have a backpack. It's not a zipper thing. It's two kind of latches and folds over a little bit because I'm constantly opening and closing it when I'm doing things like, you know, editing a podcast on the subway. So I want something that's easy, quick. I've also had too many zippers break on me that I wanted a backpack that doesn't rely on zippers. So I was imagining something like that. And then the wind sucked so much that the backpack opened and Percy didn't notice. And then, I don't know, some evil hand went bloop, put it in there and then closed it back up. Clearly, this explanation makes much more sense.
Oh, yes.
So Percy then brings up a good point. Why not just keep the bolt yourself? Why give it to Hades? And the narrator, Percy, says, Ares got a twitch in his jaw for a moment. It was almost as if he were listening to another voice deep inside his head. Why didn't I? Yeah, with that kind of firepower, I love this. And Ares is stuck in a trance for about 2 seconds, but then he snaps out of it saying he didn't want the trouble. It would be better for Percy to be caught red-handed. And Percy knows that this is a bunch of baloney, and he comes to the conclusion that this whole thing wasn't Ares' idea anyway, was it? Ares gets very upset, smoke rising from behind his shades, and he insists that it was his idea.
It's a really complicated plan in retrospect, you know?
Right, for sure. It doesn't really feel like Ares would be the mastermind here.
Yeah, exactly. Given everything we've seen of him so far in the books, it's sort of that seemed a twist unto itself, that he had such an elaborate thing going on.
Right. So Percy guesses that Ares didn't order the theft. Someone sent a hero to steal the 2 items. I'm guessing that this is Luke. Zeus then sent Ares to hunt the thief, and Ares caught the thief, but Ares let the thief go rather than turning them over to Zeus. This would also kind of make sense about how Luke is still at the camp, if we think it's Luke, which I do. Ares then kept the items until another hero could complete the delivery. Percy says that the thing in the pit is ordering Ares around. So now we have deep voice in the pit and the servant. So my previous guesses here weren't right because I was thinking that the servant was Luke and then he was talking to whoever deep voice was. Initially I thought Ares, but then after we met Ares, I was thinking, I don't know, maybe it's Hermes because he's trying to impress his dad. I really don't think it's Hermes at this point because we haven't really had a single mention of him. And unless it's a very bad plot twist here, I don't feel like the deep voice is going to be someone that we haven't really mentioned at all, because Hermes, aside from cabin Hermes, has not really been mentioned at all. Some of the other gods have been talked about. So I don't think it's that. I honestly don't have a guess for who the deep voice is, but the only thing we have to go on is that it's evil, deep voice, and Percy said it doesn't sound like a god, but I don't feel like it would be a demigod. I feel like a demigod couldn't live in the depths of Tartarus, so I don't know, it would be like on the same page as a god, but not a god. I'm kicking myself because I just can't think of it, and I feel like it's going to be someone that was mentioned offhandedly once or something, and then I'm going to be like, oh, I should have seen it, but I honestly don't know. I just think it's someone super evil. The only thing I could think of it maybe being another god, but Percy had that line where he said it doesn't sound like a god, so I really don't know. But I do feel confident about Luke. I do not have a guess here for the deep voice.
I guess that's the strength of this kind of a book series. It just keeps you wanting to read.
Yep. I mean, once we stop recording, I am flipping through the pages of the next chapter.
Good. I want that for you.
You'll be getting an all caps text message. Don't worry.
Oh, okay, good.
So Ares screams that he is the god of war and he takes orders from no one and that he doesn't have dreams. And Percy goes, who said anything about dreams? Which reminds me of the SpongeBob, oh, you do like the Krabby Patties, Squidward face. So Ares pushes this aside and says that the problem at hand is that Percy is alive and might actually get the war to stop. So he has to kill Percy. But no worries, because Ares says no hard feelings.
Yeah, that makes it all better, right?
Right. He says it's nothing personal. So Ares snaps his fingers, but going against the teachings of the great prophet Lil Jon, he does not do his step, but instead a wild boar charges out of the sand. And right, his logo for his cabin was a big wild boar. I get it. There was a boar head. Feels on brand. Percy steps into the water, super smart, and he tells Ares to fight him himself. Feels less smart. Ares taunts that Percy's only skill is running away, citing the Chimera and the underworld. Percy asks Ares if he's scared, and Ares says, in your adolescent dreams, which of course I could only think of, you make me feel like I'm living an adolescent dream the way you want to fight.
Oh, man. Demigod Katy Perry is a mood. I'm here for it, though.
I stole the helm and I liked it.
Now I'm invisible to all of these people.
Now I have become darkness. But Ares says that he can't do direct involvement with Percy because demigod versus god, so Ares commands the boar to attack Percy. Percy uncaps Riptide, sidesteps, swings upward, removing a tusk from the boar. Then the boar is in the water. Percy yells, wave, and a wave surrounds the boar and gobbles him up. Pretty quick thwarting of the boar here, and what a phenomenal way to do it.
Oh, yeah. Percy's really coming into his own now, for sure.
So Percy turns to Ares and asks if he's going to fight him directly now. Ares is fuming, tells Percy to watch it, and he says, I could turn you into, and Percy says, a cockroach or a tapeworm. Yeah, I'm sure. That'd save you from getting your godly hide whipped, wouldn't it? And that's fantastic. And this is also something that I do when I trash talk when I play basketball. Sometimes if people call fouls on me when I don't think I'm fouling them, I'm just playing hard defense. Sometimes I'll mutter something along the lines of, yeah, I'd call a foul too if I couldn't handle defense.
Oh, that's a good one. You want to get a little nerdy for a second?
Obviously.
Okay, yeah. So I wrote up my notes for this bit, Percy's aristeia, which is like a Greek epic sort of term.
Okay.
You see it like a lot in like the Iliad and stuff, because there are character moments where these individual heroes have their like finest moment throughout the Trojan War and stuff like that. But it pops up for other heroes too. But the idea is that like this is the time when the hero displays like their peak themness.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like it fits this moment in the book so well.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think something that's important to think about is actually Greek heroes were appreciated not just because they were good warriors, but also for their wits. You know, we think back to like someone like Achilles, the idea was that he was both. He was an amazing orator and smart person, but also this amazing fighter. And then, like, when you go on to the Odyssey, you see Odysseus, and, like, his actual skills was being smart, not necessarily the best warrior, and things like that. And so when we get back to Percy here, it's just this cool little mixture. Because we're seeing Percy, like, yes, he's mad, but we just saw, like, how awesome he is at just dispatching this boar very quickly. And then also, he's just goading Ares to doing what he wants right then. He just starts talking.
Right.
So he's showing his skill not just as a warrior, but also understanding like how to convince someone to do what he wants. And it's just a really cool thing. And it just unfolds from here. It's just so fun. I love this part of the book.
Yeah, that's a really great point to make, because this is kind of Percy's instincts. Sometimes he views it as, oh, I can't control these things that I say. I'm just always talking smack. But now he's utilizing it. And he did it a bit with Krusty, where he kind of used his words to, like you said, goad Krusty into doing what he wanted, and then capitalizing on that. that's kind of what happens here with Ares in this fight, is he realizes he's not going to beat him in a fight, so he has to kind of use things to his advantage, luring Ares into the water, basically, to make it more of an even playing field. And you're right, it is nice to see him turn a character trait into something that helps him achieve his goals and conquer his foes. It's a nice development of Percy's snark going from, oh, look, he's snarky, to, oh, he's using it to get people upset, and then he can catch them off guard, which is a very fun way to win a fight. He's not necessarily overpowering someone, and not even necessarily outsmarting or outplanning them like an Annabeth could do. It's more of he's getting under their skin, and then when they're not fully locked into what they're trying to do, he's able to make the most of that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So Percy continues. He says, if I lose, you can turn me into anything you want to. But if I win, I get the items and you, Ares, have to go away. Ares has a baseball bat on his shoulder, and he asks Percy if he wants to get smashed classic or modern style. Percy then shows him his sword, which Ares takes as meaning classic style. So the bat turns into a huge two-handed sword with a hilt that is a silver skull with a ruby in its mouth. Incredibly on-brand sword for Ares.
Oh, yeah.
And I honestly was just imagining the sword that you can fight with in Hades, the video game. Yeah, because it's basically that. I don't think it's silver, it's gold, but there is a face. And it honestly might, does it have a ruby in the mouth too? I feel like maybe this is based off of some famous Greek sword, but this description felt familiar.
Absolutely. Supergiant, come on the pod. Explain it to us.
Come on the pod. Annabeth tells Percy not to do this because he's a god, and Percy says he's a coward.
Hey!
Just so good. So then she gives Percy her necklace for good luck and says reconciliation, Athena and Poseidon together. Love that. Percy's face feels warm because he loves her, but he manages to crack a smile and a thank you. Grover tosses a flattened tin can to Percy and says that the satyrs are behind him. And then Percy says, Grover, I don't know what to say. And Grover pats him on the back. This is a bit, right? This has to be a bit. Yes? Grover didn't genuinely do this, right? This is them having a joke with each other? Because that's how I'm reading it for sure.
No, Grover getting the tin can. Give him the tin can.
But what's the tin can? I thought Grover was just basically making fun of Annabeth.
Oh, that's a good read too.
I thought it was just Annabeth tossing him the thing and then Grover not having anything else to toss, but he tossed the thing. But even if that wasn't a bit, I'm reading Percy saying, Grover, I don't know what to say, as clearly a joke here. But yeah, it's just like the silliest version of, and my axe.
And my axe. And my tin can.
And my crumpled tin can that's been in the bottom of my bag forever.
I know. I think Percy even mentions that he's amazed that Grover hadn't eaten it yet. And I agree.
Sometimes you misplace snacks. Recently, Kelly informed me I have a little snack cupboard where I put various snacks of mine in the house. And she said, you still have an oatmeal cream pie up there. And I had no idea that I had a little Debbie's oatmeal cream pie up there. Had I known, that would have been in my stomach weeks ago.
So listeners, I'm going to brag on my friend Mike here for a second.
Oh.
And he'll probably feel embarrassed a little bit, but
your Cash App deposit is en route.
No, but so I've had a series of some really serious exams I had to take for medical school, and Mike has actually done this for me twice, and it's been really touching. Him and my really good friend Chet as well. But they pitched in and they sent me this big old box of snacks, and they did it twice, one before the biggest amount of tests I had to take for my first year of medical school, and another one for this thing called Step 1, which is the most important test you take in medical school. And, I was super stressed about it. It was only a couple days, and I opened up this box. It was just full of snacks to just kind of help me prepare. And I definitely started crying because it was just such a touching thing. But, I really needed that, and it was awesome. But to this day, I'm still finding snacks that I stashed away in various study spots. And I'm still working through them because they just keep appearing. But
Amazing.
Thank you, buddy.
No problem, man. I know how stressful that stuff can be. And I have to give credit to Kelly for coming up with the idea, because she did that for her sister and her sister's husband when they were going for their PhDs at Duke. They were rushing for a deadline to submit their papers, and they talked about it being really stressful and all of that. And Kelly decided to, I believe it was her and her brother, sent a thing of snacks. And Erin told Kelly, without those snacks, I don't know if I would have had the motivation to finish this, and possibly would have delayed for another semester or whatever to finish their PhD requirements. Is it dissertation? I don't even know that's how ungrad schooly I am. I don't even know what the right term is.
Well, okay then. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly, for the idea. And for Mike saying, I know what I could do too. I'm an improviser, true and true. Always yes-anding. Now Ares says, you all done saying goodbye? Oh, sorry, Ares' voice. You all done saying goodbye? I've been fighting for an eternity, kid. My strength is unlimited and I cannot die. What have you got?
A tin can.
I mean, yeah, a tin can and a cool necklace. But narrator Percy says, a smaller ego, I thought, but I said nothing. And that is proof, because if you had a bigger ego, you would have said it out loud. So Percy stays in the water and remembers what Annabeth said to him in Denver. Ares has strength, that's all he has. Even strength has to bow to wisdom sometimes. So Ares swings at Percy, but Percy uses the water to vault over him. He goes for a strike, but Ares blocks it. Ares plays it smart, forcing Percy out of the water. And Ares is kind of not trying hard / doesn't seem phased, is more surprised of, oh, nice try, or oh, nice block, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Ares' sword is also much longer than Anaklusmos, so that reminds Percy of something that Luke, grumble, 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 said to him in a training session. When you've got the shorter blade, get in close. And I get that that's strategy, but also get closer to big scary guy feels like a challenge to will yourself to do. But Percy does. He steps in with a thrust, but Ares was expecting it, knocks Riptide out of Percy's hand, and he kicks him in the chest. Percy goes flying 20 to 30 feet, but thankfully he lands in a dune, which breaks his fall. But then some cops show up and someone points out that Percy is the kid from all the wanted posters. And the cop says, that guy's armed, call for backup. And Percy rolls away from another Ares slash. He runs up, picks up Anaklusmos, swipes at Ares' face, but is deflected again. And Ares says, admit it, kid, you've got no hope. I'm just toying with you. And narrator Percy describes this in a very interesting manner. Says, my senses were working overtime. I now understood what Annabeth had said about ADHD keeping you alive in battle. I was wide awake, noticing every little detail. Percy can see when Ares is tensing, and because of that, where his strikes are going to go, what move he's trying to do. He's also aware of Annabeth and Grover. He also notices the backup police officers arriving. He also notices spectators showing up. He also notices that some of the spectators are disguised satyrs, and also notices some spirits, and also he notices that he hears the flap of leathery wings above, so the Furies. And this reminds me, I did see a meme recently. Someone sent it to me. It's from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I know you love.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the thing where Peter Parker is trying to show the other Spiders-Man how Miles can do cool powers, but he can't do it on command. And it was something about ADHD. Sometimes you're able to reach this next level of hyper-focusedness, but you don't get to control it, which is unfortunate. So it was the thing where he goes,
he can turn invisible.
Yeah, he can multitask like no other and tackle many challenging thought processes at once. And then, but I can't do it on command. But he can't do it on command. And that felt like this year. But hey, this is the right time to be super keen. But I just thought it was pretty cool. It feels true to what people have told me about ADHD. And just the way in which it was written, you can very much see the way Percy is coming about this thought process. I dug this a lot. I thought this was really cool.
Yeah, it's such a good little moment for sure.
Percy's now back in the water, but Ares grazes him with a slash that rips his sleeve and grazes his forearm. The cops tell them to drop their guns, which confuses Percy, but when he looks at Ares' sword, for a brief moment it looks like a shotgun. So, I guess to the world, it looks like they're in a gunfight, not a sword fight, which is an interesting visual.
I know, it's just like, what are they seeing? Are they just like standing there like swiping guns at each other?
Exactly, it feels very strange.
Funny.
So Percy isn't sure what the mortals are seeing, but it probably looks very bad, whatever it is. Ares bellows, "This is a private matter, be gone!" and sends a wall of flame at the cops, exploding their cars. Wow. And then Ares roars with laughter, and he says, "Now, little hero, let's add you to the barbecue." And I mean, that's kind of badass. That's a good line.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Is.
A very 80s action movie of him.
Oh, yeah. I just love this whole sequence. It's just so cinematic and just fun.
I can't wait to be disappointed by the movie for absolutely fumbling the bag, because you're right. This is tailor-made to be in a movie, and I feel like they're going to mess it up.
I don't know. It's been a long time. So, okay, I need to stop making this joke. It has been a long time since I've seen the movie, though.
Yeah, this time you're genuinely true about that
This
statement.
one's true, yeah, but I was like, I've done it too much. It doesn't work.
You're the boy who cried, I don't remember what happens.
I know.
So they're deflecting each other's blows at this point. Percy keeps going back and back farther into the water. Ares is now up to his thighs in the ocean. Percy then feels the rhythm of the sea. He feels the waves growing larger as the tide rolls in, so he gets the idea of little waves, and the water begins to recede behind him. Percy's holding back the tide, but tension is building, like carbonation behind a cork of something shaken. So Percy lowers his blade to feign looking like he's too tired to go on, waits until Ares raises his sword, then he commands a wave, and he goes straight over Ares. 6 feet of water smash Ares in the face. Percy goes for a feint, as he did before. Ares turns in time to raise his sword, but because he was disoriented by getting hit in the face with a wave, he doesn't anticipate Percy's trick. Percy changes direction. He lunges to the side. He stabs Riptide into the water, and it sends the tip of the sword through Ares' heel, which feels very Greek of him to do.
Yes,
I feel like
extremely
susceptible
Greek.
Achilles tendons is a big thing for many heroes, but it connects, it gets to Ares. Awesome maneuver here from Percy. And then the description afterwards is very cool. The roar that followed made Hades' earthquake look like a minor event. Granted, an earthquake that set the entire city of Los Angeles aflame. So, oh man.
Yeah.
The very sea was blasted back from Ares, leaving a wet circle of sand 50 feet wide. And then ichor, which is golden blood of the gods, starts to flow out of Ares' wound, and his expression goes beyond hatred. It is pain. It is utter disbelief that he had been wounded at all by this demigod. And the narrator Percy continues, he limped toward me, muttering ancient Greek curses. Something stopped him. It was as if a cloud covered the sun, but worse. Light faded, sound and color drained away. A cold, heavy presence passed over the beach, slowing time, dropping the temperature to freezing, and making me feel like life was hopeless and fighting was useless. Ares then says, you have made an enemy, godling. You have sealed your fate. Every time you raise your blade in battle, every time you hope for success, you will feel my curse. Beware, Perseus Jackson, beware. Which, but also, whatever the heck happened before, I'm assuming that that is Deep Voice, whatever evil force that Deep Voice is, stopped Ares because he needs Percy alive. But again, I don't know who Deep Voice is. I don't even know if it's even a being. Is it some sort of vague concept? I don't know the rules. I don't know what it could be. I don't know, like a list of potential suspects. Oh no, too real. I need to sell Percy as an NFT.
Yes.
I need him minted. You can't kill him.
We can't make 4 other books unless he survives.
Ares, it's the first book of 5. Oh man, no, that feels
roll.
like rude to Uncle Rick for that to be on capitalism.
No, it's
It's like the people who think I'm doing 1 chapter per episode sometimes because I'm trying to milk this as long as possible because it's my job. No, I just want to go super in depth. Come on.
legit, folks. Mike and I talked extensively, like, how many episodes are these 2 chapters going to take? But we did it. It's going to be 2.
We're doing it. We're going to be okay. It's going to be 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also doing longer episodes in an ideal world would be possible, but not in a world where Sherry and I need to sleep.
I'd much prefer you guys sleep. I'm not a doctor, but I hear it's pretty important.
You will be a doctor soon. But
I
also,
know.
yeah, people think, oh, yo, if they did 2-hour episodes, it would be so good. Those episodes would be terrible because I would be so tired all of the time. But thankfully, I think the majority of listeners understand how much work goes into the show. So shout out to all of you. I'm glad that it is the minority of people who think that it is possible for us to make episodes longer and / or more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
So Ares' body begins to glow. Annabeth shouts to not look. Percy turns away just as Ares is about to reveal his true immortal form. And Percy just somehow gets the instinct that if he were to look, he would just turn into ash. So the light fades and Ares is gone. I don't know if there's ever a depiction of pure immortal form. I feel like this is a Greek god thing I've heard about before. I don't know why, but I was imagining something gross with tentacles.
Oh, I love that. It's funny that this also works under, Raiders of the Lost Ark rules. For that, which like, you can't view this pure version of this celestial being, or otherwise
your face melts.
Yeah, your face
but
melts.
But it's okay. The guy whose face melted was a Nazi, and we love when that happens to Nazis. It's very good when that happens.
I agree.
So the tide clears, and it reveals the Helm of Darkness. Percy grabs it and returns to Annabeth and Grover. They're the only people left because the spectators and the police officers fled the scene. And, the Furies land. And I thought, surely they're not going to try to fight him. The middle Fury, who is Dodds, which I think is interesting if you think about Hades the video game, her being Meg is just the most different possible.
Yeah.
So if anyone's played, you understand why that is vastly different. Just the way those takes on the Furies differ so significantly is hilarious to me. But Dodds comes forward and says that she saw the whole thing and she is shocked to realize that it wasn't Percy who took the helm. He tosses her the helmet and instructs her to give it to Hades, to tell him the truth, and to tell him to call off the war. Before she leaves, she tells Percy to live well and become a true hero, because if he ever comes into her clutches again, and then rather than finish the sentence, she just flies away and laughs, which is the best way to finish that sentence.
That is good.
So Annabeth thinks that this battle was terrifying because she loves Percy. Grover thinks it was cool because he's a homie. Then Percy says, "Did you guys feel that? Whatever it was." And they both nodded uneasily. And Grover says, "Must have been the Furies overhead." But narrator Percy isn't so sure. I also don't think that's what it was. Narrator Percy mentions something had stopped Ares from killing me. And whatever could do that was a lot stronger than the Furies. Again, I am so intrigued to see who it is. But then narrator Percy continues, "I looked at Annabeth, and an understanding passed between us. I knew now what was in that pit, what had spoken from the entrance of Tartarus." And Percy says that they have to get to New York by the end of the night. And Annabeth says that's impossible unless we fly. And Percy agrees. So Annabeth says, "Fly? Like in an airplane? Which you were warned never to do, lest Zeus strike you out of the sky, and carrying a weapon that has more destructive power than a nuclear bomb?" My thought, yeah, how is the bolt getting through airport security? That's going to be a challenge. But Percy replies, "Yeah, pretty much exactly like that. Come on." And that's the end of this chapter. And that's the end of this episode of The Noose Olympian. Oh boy, how we feeling, Stephen?
Amazing. I mean, like, these two chapters are what made me fall in love with this series. You know, like, before, like, it is fun. It's such a good time. But, like, to get hit with the plot twists and the fun and the intrigue, like, I'm just so glad that you're reading this book series and that we got to share these specific moments together, because they're what hooked me. And I know you were hooked beforehand, but, like, this is peak Percy Jackson to me. It's really showing that kids can handle more complicated storylines, and you can sit there and have real character moments that are human and deep and interesting, and then also just have a fun action-packed romp where you're just fighting the god of war and can come out of it okay.
Yeah.
I'm still just so glad you brought me on, man. I hope you had a good time. I definitely did.
I had a blast. I'm so glad you were here too, bud. This was a delight.
Yeah, and I'm just excited to see you continue on this journey, man. It's awesome.
I am as well. So thank you so much for joining for this episode and the last one. This has been so much fun. Always fun talking to you, but getting to nerd out about Percy Jackson with you has been a delight and a long time coming. If there's anything that you would like to promote, or anywhere that people can find you, or any particular, I don't know, disclaimers you might have to make because of a particular school that you attend, is there anything you'd like to say at this moment in time?
Of course, Mike. Like we said before last week, you know, all the thoughts, jokes, and opinions I've made are completely my own, and they don't reflect the thoughts or opinions of any medical school or medical institution that exists.
Twitter bio in the episode. Tweets are my own. Retweets are not endorsements.
Exactly.
Stephen, if people want to find you doing stuff or anything else you want to share out to the folks, what you got?
Yeah, sure. I forgot to mention this last week. Get your shots if you can.
Hey, I got my booster today.
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
Feeling great now, but who's to say how I'll feel? But you know what? Having one day of not feeling good is way better than having COVID.
I agree. Absolutely. And like I mentioned last week, I actually have popped up on some other podcasts from time to time. Like I said, you can definitely check me out on one of Mike's other podcasts, Meddling Adults. I think it's pretty awesome.
Me too. The host is so good.
He is. Oh, man, he's awesome.
He's so funny and nice and attractive and humble.
Oh, yeah. That's really why I listen to podcasts, for how attractive the host is. I go with the groomsman Sal Testa. We try to solve children's mysteries for charity, and Mike is our wonderful host for the episode that we're on. Feel free to check it out. It's a lot of fun. In that vein, I also guest from time to time on this other podcast called Render Me This. It's where my friends Ia and Micah try to take a deep dive into the cartoons that we watched when we were kids and really think about what those worlds would be like and if we would want to live there. I've done a couple episodes already. One's about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime and another one about the movie Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. That one's fun because the monsters are real.
Yeah, super fun. Love that.
So you can check that out on Render Me This, anywhere podcasts are played.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thanks for listening. And until next time, we're at a very intense portion of the book right now. So I'm going to make this outro really quick because I'm going to leave and immediately start reading chapter 21. But until next time, until then, I'll see you later. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Google, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you are enjoying the show, but you can't get enough, first thing you could do is check out the Patreon. There's lots of bonus content there. If you support by going to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon, you can get access to a bunch of stuff like bonus episodes, director's commentary, live streams, and more. And if you still can't get enough of the show, you can find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We have a subreddit, reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. And we have a Discord that you get access to with a Patreon membership. If you want to get some of that sweet, sweet new merch, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/merch. Also, I'd like to thank the producer level patrons of the show: Lauda Bartova, Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Emma Cooey, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Hoskovchova, Veronica Bartova, Natanya Page, Haley Hastings, Robin Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Tough Beifong, Moo Productions, Don't Call Me Nymphadora, Olivia Y, Craig McRoberts, Griffin Dork, Taylor Payne, Giselle Salvador, Minka Dreesen, Can't I See We Brain, Matt Barger, Peter Johnson the Twin, Sabrina Balsiger, Mooney B, Boney Pony, Harlan Christ, Heather McMillan, Casey Canales, Polly Burridge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Bridget Lowry, Aidan Lippold, Josh Sayer, Percy Blue, Josh Wilkie, Martin Anvik, Abby Ryan, Josh Clements, Angela MF, Mary Baumgartner, Shannon Yvonne Aguilar, Wise Girl, Alpacas Are Hope, Finn TZ, Ribbon Monstrosity, Samantha McNamara, Tate Sasson, Emil Oscar Thomason, Roxas 1912, Rafaela, Ashton Gabrielson, Cara Moren, Marco Redhouse, and Falcon Joey James Christopher William Boucher. If you want to help out the show non-monetarily, spreading it via word of mouth is one of the best things that you can do. Whether you tell someone directly to listen to the show, if you find someone or if you know of someone who would like the podcast, or if you post about it on social media, or you leave us a rating and review on whatever app you're using, all of those things really help, and they help grow the audience, and that's fun. The bigger the book club, the better, I always say, when I host a podcast that's also kind of like a digital book club at the same time. If you do any of those, I would be eternally grateful, but I'm just very grateful that you have listened to this episode, and I hope you tune in to our next episode, which will cover chapter 21 of The Lightning Thief, and the guest will be my wife, Kelly Beckman Schubert. But I hope you have a great week, and until we meet again, I'll pursue you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. I just hope that you had a very restful holiday season. I know the holidays can be a bit of a stressful time given travel and family stuff. So hopefully that was nice. Hopefully whatever gifts you were hoping for, you got. Hopefully whatever gifts you gave to other people, they really enjoyed and appreciated. And hopefully you're having a good start off to the year. Maybe you've set some resolutions. Maybe you've already completed some of your resolutions. Or maybe you're just on track. Or maybe you're just waiting a little bit of time. It's okay. It's fine. You live your life on your own schedule. You don't have to worry about anybody else's schedule. You, do what's best for you, and have a good start to the year. We're not very far into the year, and you just want to make sure you get your best foot forward. And, maybe it took you a little extra time to put your best foot down, but if it's still forward, you're still putting your best foot forward, and don't worry about it if it took a little bit of time. That's okay. I believe in you, and I think you can have a good year. I think we should all try to will into existence this being a good year, since the past two weren't so great. So let's all do that together. Thank you so much for listening.